What is up, guys? Delboy here. A quick preview and prediction for the July 20th heavyweight fight between Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas. Now, there's been numerous talk whether this fight is going to be a WBC final eliminator. There's been talk about this fight maybe being for the WBC interim title. From what I understand, none of that has been confirmed as of right now, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, as of right now, it's being listed as a non-title fight. I've also seen people debate whether this card is pay-per-view worthy or not. Now, ultimately, that is down to the individual. For me, I'm not saying this is a bad card because there's a few good fights on this card, and the main event in itself isn't a bad fight at all, but is it pay-per-view worthy, really? For me, no. I mean, if you are talking about value for money, on the same night, you have Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman later on in the evening. That's on ITV box office, and I believe that pay-per-view is £12.95. You certainly get a lot better value there. You've got a better main event with arguably a better undercard. So there we go. For me, Dillian Whyte versus Oscar Rivas isn't pay-per-view worthy, but like I said earlier, it's totally down to the individual, and that's my opinion. I don't think it's pay-per-view worthy. I didn't think his fight with Chisora in the rematch was pay-per-view worthy. That's just my opinion. But I'm not saying it's a bad fight by any means. In fact, it's a fight that has a level of intrigue, for me at least. Let's briefly talk about both guys, their records and their general attributes. Dillian Whyte, he's got a record of 25 wins and 1 defeat, 18 of those 25 wins coming by way of knockout. Oscar Rivas, he has a perfect record of 26-0, 18 of those 26 wins coming by way of knockout. Dillian Whyte is listed as 6'4" with a 78-inch reach, whereas Oscar Rivas is listed as 6'1.5" with a 76.5-inch reach. So Dillian Whyte, according to the official stats, has a 3.5-inch height advantage and a 1.5-inch reach advantage. Will that play a factor in this fight? Potentially. We'll get into that a bit later. In regards to the punching power of both guys, they actually have an identical knockout ratio of 69%. Who hits harder? I think Oscar Rivas is naturally more explosive. He's got those fast twitch muscles and quicker hand speed, which contributes to his punching power. But for me, Dillian Whyte is a more proven puncher at a higher level. You know, he's knocked out guys like Derek Chisora, a guy who has always shown quite good durability. He dropped Joseph Parker. He's the only man to drop Joseph Parker. That left hook of Dillian Whyte is a legitimate punch, and arguably it's one of the best and most powerful punches in the heavyweight division today. So based on what I've seen from both fighters, I would say Dillian Whyte is certainly the more proven puncher out of the two. But let's get to the style clash. How is this fight going to play out? For me, Rivas is better on the front foot. He's a guy who's short and compact. Like I said, he's 6'1.5". He's a much smaller heavyweight, and he fights as such. He comes forward, like I said, in a compact style with a nice tight guard, arms close together, protecting his face, and he'll come forward and he'll try to push you back. He's got a lovely jab on the front foot, a piston-like jab, and he really steps into it. He uses that punch, as an offensive tool. You know, it's a really hard jab. It's almost like a power shot, but he also uses that jab to maneuver his opponents around the ring to try to get them onto the ropes so they're stationary, so he can unload his power shots. And Rivas's power mainly comes from his hooks. That left hook of Oscar Rivas certainly is a powerful punch. He's also got a nice chopping short right hand that packs a punch as well. Rivas is genuinely a heavy-handed guy with good hand speed, and for me, he's best fighting on the front foot. I've not really seen Rivas box and move on the back foot effectively. He's always shown his best work when he's A, applying pressure, or B, just letting his hands go and making the most of his explosive style. I mean, on the come-up, Rivas, displayed some really good knockouts against lesser-known guys, but he really opened up in these fights, and he looked quite creative with his offense at times. I mean, you can go back and watch that Joey Abel fight, for example. But yeah, for me, Oscar Rivas is an offensive fighter, but there really is no plan B. I guess you would say he's fairly one-dimensional in his approach, but he's certainly dangerous in his own style. And Dillian Whyte needs to be careful. Rivas is the type of guy where you can't afford to switch off because he does have power. And he also has decent timing as well. Solid fundamentals. He can time you effectively, and he's actually a decent counterpuncher on the front foot. And that's hard to come by in the heavyweight division. There's not many heavyweights who can counter effectively on the front foot, and I think Rivas can do it to a decent standard. He can do it to a decent standard. And against a guy like Dillian Whyte, who is a bit raw, he does lose his shape fairly often. Maybe that style could give Dillian problems. Let's say Dillian does box on the back foot and Rivas is applying pressure. Yes, Dillian has shown a good jab in the past. Yes, he's got long arms. But to me, when Dillian tries to box on the outside against higher tier opposition, he doesn't look comfortable. He loses his shape quite regularly. And against a guy who can counter on the front foot like Oscar Rivas, a short, quick guy, that could be a problem for him. So, listen, if he boxes on the back foot, I think Dillian really needs to be on his P's and Q's, and he needs to manage range effectively. Can Dillian manage the range against Oscar Rivas? I mean, I believe so. Rivas, yes, he's got quick hand speed. Yes, he's got, an explosive style where he fights in bursts, but I don't think his foot speed matches his hand speed. I actually think Rivas at times looks a bit plodding with his footwork coming forwards. He's not the type of guy who cuts off a ring extremely quickly. I like the way he jabs to close the distance and manoeuvre his opponents, but his feet aren't quick enough. His feet need to be quicker. And against a long-rangey guy like Dillian Whyte, those feet could be a problem. Maybe Oscar Rivas could struggle to close the distance against a much taller guy like Dillian. And Dillian, listen, Dillian's not got no roadrunner feet, but his feet are fairly quick. His feet are quicker than the average heavyweight, certainly quicker than Oscar Rivas is. So maybe even if Dillian is making mistakes on the back foot, maybe he can just still keep himself out of harm's way based on his superior foot speed and reach. That's where I worry for Oscar Rivas in this fight. It's him closing the distance. It's him getting close to Dillian Whyte. If he does get close to Dillian Whyte, I certainly believe he's got the ability to have real success. Ultimately, I'm pretty certain on how Rivas is going to approach this. For me, he's going to apply pressure. He's going to do what he knows. Coming forward behind a nice tight high guard, using that jab, looking to force Dillian back, and he'll look for those power shots. How does Dillian approach this fight? Does he box on the back foot and try to, outbox Rivas and maybe win on points or take him out down the stretch? Or does Dillian try to meet fire with fire? Does Dillian try to force Rivas back? Because on the back foot, we've really no idea how good Rivas is. Dillian's a taller, arguably stronger man. And if Dillian can get on top of Rivas, how's Rivas going to respond to that? Could Dillian Whyte beat Rivas at his own game? Beat him up on the mid-range and on the inside. Dillian certainly on the inside. He can pick his shots really well. Good body puncher. Lovely uppercuts on the inside. Dillian's got a lot better at head control these days. Dillian Whyte on the inside, offensively at least, is one of the better fighters in the heavyweight division. If these guys are on each other's chests, throwing away, maybe Dillian could get the better of it. Like I said, that bodywork from Dillian Whyte could be a problem for Oscar Rivas. Rivas in the past has gassed in certain fights. I mean, the Fabio Maldonado fight, for example, I felt he gassed quite horribly in that fight. The fight before that, against the Belgian heavyweight, Herve Habu, again, didn't get him out of there early on, and he gassed down the stretch. Now, he wasn't as bad in the Bryant Jennings fight. In fact, he conserved his energy quite well. But, that was the first time he's done that. In other fights in the past, he struggled with his gas tank. So, if Dillian can invest to the body early on, maybe he can dog walk Oscar Rivas and force a stoppage. So ultimately, I think there's a few ways Dillian can approach this fight. Like I said, on the back foot, maybe he could try to battle Rivas on the inside. I think mid-range is where Dillian will have most problems, because I think that's when Rivas has his best opportunity. That's when Rivas can counter Dillian Whyte. You know, Dillian, when he exchanges, particularly at mid-range, you know, he kind of gets a bit sloppy, wide punches, and against a shorter, compact guy who can deliver quick shots, that could be a problem. You know, like I said, Rivas is a very good counterpuncher. Ultimately, I think this is the type of fight where if Dillian is on his P's and Q's, he should win. Whether that be points or knockout, I'm not sure, but he's got enough tools to win this fight. He really does. But Rivas, at the same time, to me, he's one of those opponents where if you are not on your P's and Q's, he can upset you. I think Oscar Rivas is that prototypical banana skin type fighter where if you are not, you know, looking at the job at hand, then you could lose. And as we know, Dillian Whyte has been talking about fights with the likes of Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder in recent months. Is Dillian fully focused for this fight? Has he got his mind on the job? He best do, because Oscar Rivas is no joke. He's not a bad fighter by any means. Powerful puncher, like I said. Good amateur background. He's no mug. So Dillian best be on his P's and Q's. Otherwise he could slip up. But ultimately, I think Dillian has the advantages going into this fight. Taller, longer, bigger guy. He's fought better competition as a pro. He's at home. He's the A side. And I believe he's got the style and attributes to win this fight. I'm picking Dillian Whyte. I'm not really sure whether it be by points or knockout, but I'm picking Dillian Whyte to win this one. But I do think it's going to be a good fight. I do believe Dillian will have a few rocky moments in this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Dillian hurt or even hit the deck. Wouldn't be surprised at all. You know? But ultimately, I expect Dillian to pull through and get the win. I'm just unsure on the method. But anyway, share your thoughts below on this fight. How do you see it going? Are you looking forward to it? Do you feel there's a chance for an upset? I've actually seen a few people out there pick Oscar Rivas in this fight. So this fight does have a level of intrigue, So yeah, share your thoughts below. Peace.